Back here on HQ Spotlight, you watched it all go down on CBS. The Chiefs topping the Ravens at Arrowhead 37-20. That was the most points in a game for KC since 2023. And now Kansas City is 2-2 with a little bit of their swagger back. That's scary. So the AFC West standings, they now look like this. The Chargers are 3-0 in the division, 3-1 overall. The Chiefs at 2-2. Finally, the Broncos and the Raiders both with one win each, no wins in the division. A reminder that the Broncos, though, play the Bengals tonight. Let's welcome in our friends Ryan Wilson and the very bright John Breech. So glad that you guys are here to give some grades for the AFC West. Let's start with those Chiefs. I'm sure the grade would have been different before the game yesterday, but if we're factoring in their season in its totality, John, what grade would you give KC?
Well, first, Emily, I know when you talk about my brightness, you're talking about my intellect and not my shirt, but thank you. Either way, I'm going to give the Kansas City Chiefs a C+, and it really helped that they did go out and destroy the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. But when you look at the first quarter of the season as a whole, the first game in Brazil, it's a little difficult to play down there. They lose the Chargers by 1 score, a close game against Philly in week 2. And when you look at what the Chiefs have been doing through the first 4 weeks, they've never really been at full strength. They were almost playing left-handed because for 2 weeks they had to play without Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. And then obviously Worthy's now back in the lineup, and boom, they put up 37 points. They'll get Rashee Rice back in week 7. At that point, this team will be back at full strength. So, hey, we did spend the first 3 weeks of the season debating whether the dynasty was over. Well, I'm going to say I don't think the dynasty is over, guys. This team feels like they figured everything out. And, yeah, C+ first quarter, but I expect them to be even better to close out the season.
Breech, you're the professor that everybody loves during the classes because you're collegial, you get along with everyone, and you're an incredibly tough grader. I gave them a B-, virtually for the same reasons you did. I come across as gruff, maybe not as smart looking as you, but I'm a little easier grader. I'm thinking long-term projections, and you talked about it. Xavier Worthy's back. They'll get Rashee Rice back. The defense played really well against a banged-up Ravens team that no one could have envisioned coming into the season, let alone Sunday's action. And, you know, you and I have talked about this for years now. As long as you have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, everything is probably going to be okay. You can't lean on Travis Kelce at this point, but we all knew that going in. And as these guys get healthier on offense, I think you're right. They're going to continue to be the team that we thought they were. No one would have envisioned them being in second place at 2-2 a month into the season, but that's why we like watching football, Emily. So I'm going to give them a B-, a little easier grader than John Breech.
I hope you like watching the Chiefs. They will be in prime time 3 out of the next 4 games. Let's go to the Chargers, and I am the harbor of the grades. I already know what's going to happen, so we might have a little flip here. Let's talk about them. 3-0 in the division, although coming off their first loss, but thankfully it was out of conference. So, Ryan, what's your grade?
All right, I'm going to give a B+. I'll be interested to hear what John thinks about this. And if I told you a month ago this team will be 3-0 in the division, as you just noted, Emily, 3-1 overall, you would say A+, because you knew one of those games was going to be week 1 in Brazil against Kansas City, and they looked like the better team by a large margin in that game. They beat a Raiders team that we'll talk about in a moment, and they beat a Broncos team that had exceedingly high expectations and have yet to meet those expectations. So the concern going forward, B+ through the first 4 weeks, is that Joe Alt's banged up, Khalil Mack's banged up, so they have some real issues along the offensive line. And when you lose to the Giants, whether it's on the road, at home, on the moon, that is troubling, especially against a rookie quarterback. So they have to get that sorted out. But I think Justin Herbert looks like the franchise quarterback that we were all expecting. We know how good a coach Jim Harbaugh is. So, Breech, I said B+.
Wilson, classic East Coast bias. You don't like the West Coast teams. We get it. I am giving the Los Angeles Chargers an A-. The team is 3-1. And yes, this would have been an A+ if they had not lost to the Giants on Sunday. But this is the Chargers we're talking about. So we knew they were going to go chargering at some point, and they did that by losing as a huge favorite. But as you said, it's the first 3 weeks of the season where the Chargers did a lot of good damage. When you start your season by winning 3 straight games in the division, that gives you a leg up on everyone. So, yes, they're only a game ahead of the Chiefs in the standings. But when you look in the divisional standings, where the tiebreakers would be if they end up with the same record, the Chargers feel really good about themselves right now. And they played well against the Chiefs. They dominated the Raiders. And, yes, only a field goal win over the Broncos. But the fact they've been winning those games are games the Chargers lose in the past. With Jim Harbaugh coaching, they're not losing those anymore. And Justin Herbert has looked like an MVP candidate. Well, he did until Sunday. And if he keeps playing that well, this team should be a playoff contender. But the offensive line, I would say, is a minor concern, but an A- for the Chargers.
Yeah, Ryan, I know you said you don't care where the game is played, even if it's on the moon. But, I mean, going to Brazil and then doing the cross-country trip, the Chargers have racked up the mileage in this early season. Let's go to the Raiders. 3 straight losses for them. So, John, where do you put their grade through 4 weeks?
I gave the Raiders a C-, and that's mostly because they're 1-3, and that's about where I expected them to be after 4 games. I didn't think this team was going to go 4-0. I thought they were a little too good to be 0-4. And if you look at how they've played, it hasn't been that bad. They got that week 1 win over the Patriots. They probably should have beaten the Chicago Bears on Sunday if they don't let a field goal get blocked with about 30 seconds left in the game, and they'd be sitting at 2-2. So it's those little mistakes that bad teams continuously make that you have to fix. And the other thing about the Raiders, it's Geno Smith, I think, has been a bigger issue than anyone thought he would be. He's got 3 interceptions in 2 of their 4 games. And if your quarterback's throwing 3 interceptions a game, you're not going to win very many. So they made a big trade for him. He hasn't quite panned out yet, so he needs to do a little bit more. And that is why I got him at a C-.
More East Coast bias, John. I gave him a D, and I usually refer to Geno Smith as Eugene Cyril Smith III in a good way, but as John notes, he has been struggling. Ashton Genty finally got going on Sunday, and they still found a way to lose that game. They have to play better. I think that we expected more from Pete Carroll, and maybe that comes, but so far, not quite yet. And to Breech's larger point, you can't win football games if Geno Smith keeps throwing interceptions.
No coast bias here. Broncos smack dab in Mountain Time. They have not won since that Titans win in week 1. They play the Bengals tonight. Ryan, what do you give them after 3 games?
C-, and that's mostly to do with the struggling, sputtering offense. The defense has been lights out, and you can lose to the MVP Daniel Jones Colts. I get that, and the Chargers as well. I understand that, but those are games that they could have won late in the 4th quarter. I think Bo Nix needs to play better. Beside that, the defense continues to do its thing, and I think they're going to get a homecoming game of sorts tonight against the Bengals and get back on track. But through 3 games so far, gave a C-.
And now Ryan with the Mountain Time Zone bias. It's at Han Wilson. I am giving them a C+. This team is 2 plays away from being 3-0. They lost on a last-second field goal to the Colts in week 2 after a boneheaded penalty. Lost on a last-second field goal to the Chargers in week 3. So as long as they can start winning these close games, they should be in good shape going forward, and they can't blow it against the Bengals tonight.
I love it. Thank you both so much. Bright minds, bright shirt as well. We appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Here's what Vegas thinks. Chargers still the favorite in the division, but the Chiefs snipping at their heels there. Getting a little bit of steam after that win yesterday, but quite the gap for the aforementioned Raiders at 3,300.